My mother-in-law, Martha Stevenson, was on her feet. Her manicured finger, tipped in blood-red polish, was stabbing the air inches from my face. Her chest was heaving beneath her vintage Chanel suit. "Look at her, Your Honor. Just look at her. She's shaking. She's unstable. She's a danger to herself and, more importantly, a danger to my son's children. They belong with me." I stood there, gripping the edge of the defendant's table so hard my knuckles turned white. I could feel the sweat trickling down my spine despite the courtroom being freezing cold. I could smell the stale coffee on my lawyer's breath and the overpowering scent of Martha's perfume, Chanel No. 5, which used to make me nauseous and now just smelled like fear. My legs were trembling, not a little shake, but a violent tremor that threatened to drop me to the floor. To everyone watching, the stern-faced Judge Patterson, the exhausted court reporter typing furiously, the skeptical social worker in the back row, I looked exactly like what Martha wanted them to see. A broken widow, a mess, a woman barely holding on to her sanity. And why wouldn't they think that? Martha had spent the last 6 months and over $200,000 painting a masterpiece of lies. She had photos of me passed out on the couch. I was sleeping after a double shift. She had text messages where I sounded manic, edited and taken out of context. She even had a witness from Child Protective Services, a woman named Brenda, who was prepared to swear on oath that I was a pill-popping, neglectful drunk who let my 5-year-old twins eat cereal for dinner while I stared at the wall. Martha looked at me then. She stopped screaming for a split second, and in the silence of that courtroom, she gave me a look I'll never forget. It wasn't anger. It was triumph. It was a cold, cruel smile that barely touched her lips but lit up her eyes. It was a look that said, "I told you, Sarah, I always win." She thought this was it, the victory lap, the moment the judge would bang that gavel one last time, hand over full custody of Leo and Nia, and erase me from their lives as easily as wiping a stain off a countertop. My lawyer, Mr. Henderson, stood up slowly. He was 73 years old, wore a suit that was 2 sizes too big, and moved with a slight limp. Martha had mocked him earlier, calling him a nursing home reject, loud enough for me to hear. But Henderson didn't look scared. He adjusted his glasses, looked at the judge, and then looked at Martha. "Your Honor," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a razor. "Before you make any ruling on custody or grandparents' rights or the alleged instability of my client, we have one final piece of evidence." Martha rolled her eyes. Her lawyer, a shark named Vincent Cross, who charged $800 an hour, sighed loudly. "Objection, Your Honor. Discovery's closed." "This evidence," Henderson continued, ignoring him, "was recorded this morning at 8:47 a.m. inside the plaintiff's own vehicle." Martha's smile flickered. Just for a fraction of a second, a tiny crack in the porcelain mask. I reached into my jacket pocket. My fingers brushed against the cold metal of a small silver USB drive. Inside that tiny piece of plastic was the end of Martha Stevenson. It was the nuclear bomb that would blow her perfect life apart. But she didn't know that yet. She didn't know that for the last 3 weeks, the nanny she bribed to spy on me was actually working for me. She didn't know I found the GPS tracker in my daughter's teddy bear. And she definitely didn't know that I wasn't the broken widow she thought I was. I took a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs. But to understand how we got to this moment, how a graphic designer from Seattle ended up in a federal standoff with a multi-millionaire psychopath, I have to take you back back before the lawyers, before the death threats, before the cameras in the smoke detectors. Back to the day I met the love of my life and didn't realize I was actually walking into a war zone. My name is Sarah Miller, and looking back, I realize I was the perfect victim. I was 24 years old when I met David. I was a freelance graphic designer, living paycheck to paycheck in a studio apartment that smelled like paint thinner and instant noodles. I had no family nearby. My parents had passed when I was in college, and I was lonely in that deep, aching way you only feel in a big city full of people. I met David Stevenson at a coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday in November. I was fighting with the Wi-Fi, trying to upload a logo design for a client who was already 3 days late on payment. David was sitting at the next table. He was reviewing blueprints, architectural drawings for a high-rise in Dubai. He reached for a sugar packet and knocked over my latte and ruined my favorite scarf. "Oh my God," he said, his eyes going wide. He had the kindest eyes I'd ever seen, soft brown, wrinkled at the corners. "I am so sorry," he said. "I'm a clumsy idiot. Please let me buy you another one and lunch and a new scarf." We talked for 4 hours that day. The coffee shop staff started putting chairs on tables around us, and we didn't even notice. He told me about his work, about how he wanted to build buildings that made people feel safe. He told me he loved drawing cartoons for kids. He was gentle. He listened when I talked. He laughed at my terrible jokes. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. 6 months later, he proposed. It was simple. We were hiking on a trail overlooking Mount Rainier. The air was crisp, smelling of pine and rain. He got down on one knee, his hands shaking slightly, and pulled out a ring. "Sarah," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I want to build a life with you, a real home." I said yes before he even finished the sentence. I cried. I hugged him so tight I thought I'd never let go. "There's just one thing," David said later, as we drove back down the mountain. His voice had changed. It was tighter, guarded. "What?" I asked, admiring the ring on my finger. "My mom," he said. He gripped the steering wheel a little harder. "She's protective, intense. You just have to give her time. She means well, Sarah. She really does." That was the first red flag. The phrase, "she means well." If I had known then what I know now, I would have opened the car door and rolled out onto the highway. I met Martha Stevenson 3 weeks later. David insisted we meet at a restaurant she chose, Le Jardin. It was the kind of place where the menus didn't have prices and the air conditioning was set to morgue. I wore my best dress, a navy blue wrap dress I bought on sale at Macy's. I felt pretty in it until I walked in and saw her. Martha was sitting at a corner booth, sipping sparkling water with a slice of lime. She was beautiful, but in a terrifyingly frozen way. Her skin was smooth, pulled tight by expensive surgeons. Her blonde hair was a helmet of perfection. She wore a cream blazer that probably cost more than my car. When we approached the table, she didn't stand up. She didn't smile. She scanned me from head to toe, her eyes lingering on my shoes, scuffed at the heel, and my hair, frizzy from the humidity. "So," she said, her voice was smooth like velvet wrapped around a knife, "you're the graphic designer." "Yes, Mrs. Stevenson," I said, extending my hand. "It's so nice to meet you." She looked at my hand for a second, then took a sip of her water. She didn't shake it. "David tells me you work freelance," she said, making the word sound like unemployed. "That must be very unstable." I actually have a steady client list, I said, pulling my hand back, feeling my face heat up. I enjoy the flexibility. How quaint, she murmured. Then she turned her back to me completely and focused on David. Darling, your tie is crooked. Come here. For the next 2 hours, I didn't exist. Martha spent the entire dinner picking at David. She cut a steak because she said it looked too tough for him. She reordered his wine because the vintage wasn't up to his standard. She asked him about his finances, his schedule, his weight. You look tired, David, she said, stroking his cheek. Are you getting enough iron? I should send over my nutritionist. I'm fine, Mom, David said with his shoulders hunched. He looked smaller around her, less like the confident architect I knew, and more like a scared little boy. When the check came, I reached for my purse. Please let me contribute. Martha laughed. It was a dry, brittle sound. Put that away, dear. We wouldn't want you to miss a rent payment. On the drive home, I was fuming. David, she hates me. She treated me like a beggar off the street. She doesn't hate you, David sighed. He looked exhausted. She's been alone since Dad died. I'm all she has. She's terrified of losing me. Just give her time, Sarah, please. For me. He looked so desperate, so torn. And because I loved him, I swallowed my pride. I told myself I could handle one difficult woman. I told myself that love conquered all. I was an idiot. We got married in October. 2 years later, I got pregnant. Twins. When we told Martha, she didn't congratulate us. She stared at my stomach and said, I hope you have the hips for it. David was a large baby. I nearly died giving birth to him. The pregnancy was hard, bed rest, high blood pressure. Martha helped by sending over a housekeeper who reported back to her on everything I ate. Martha says you're eating too much sugar, she would say, taking away my cookies. She says it's bad for the air. The air. That's what she called the baby. When I went into labor 5 weeks early, it was chaos. Emergency C-section, terrifying. I woke up in the recovery room, groggy, in pain, hooked up to monitors. Martha was there. She was sitting in the rocking chair, holding my son, Leo. She wasn't looking at me. She was cooing at the baby. Hello, my little prince, she whispered. Grandma is here. Grandma's going to take care of you. I won't let that woman ruin you. David? I croaked. David was asleep in the corner chair. He hadn't heard her. Where is the girl? I asked. Martha looked up. Her expression was bored. The girl is in the nursery. She's small, weak, but this one, she kissed Leo's head, this one is a Stevenson. From that moment on, the dynamic was set. Leo was the golden child, the prince. Mia was the scapegoat, the invisible one, and I was the incubator who had served her purpose. For 5 years, she chipped away at us. She bought Leo a pony. She bought Mia a coloring book. She whispered to Leo that I was tired and lazy. She told David I was unappreciative of her generosity. And David, my sweet, conflict-avoided David, he just tried to keep the peace. He became a ghost in his own marriage, trying to navigate the minefield between his mother and his wife. I thought about leaving. 1,000 times I thought about packing the kids and running. But I loved him, and I kept hoping he would wake up, hoping she would change. Then came the rain. I wanted a small ceremony. Just friends, laughter, good food. Martha tried to hijack everything. She wanted the plaza. She wanted 400 guests. She wanted a string quartet. David and I held our ground. We chose a rustic barn venue outside Seattle. On the day of the wedding, I was in the bridal suite, putting on my earrings. My dress was simple, ivory lace, vintage style. I felt radiant. Then the door opened. Martha walked in. The room went silent. My bridesmaid stopped talking. My maid of honor dropped her brush. Martha was wearing a floor-length gown. It was satin. It was beaded. And it was white. Not cream, not champagne, stark, blinding, bridal white. It looked almost exactly like a wedding dress. "Oh," Martha said, putting her hand to her chest in mock surprise. "Sarah, you look nice. Is that the dress you chose? It's so simple." "Martha," I said, my voice shaking, "you're wearing white." "This?" She looked down at her gown. "Oh, darling, don't be dramatic. This is ice pearl. Besides, I thought with your complexion, you'd be wearing something darker to hide the flaws." She smiled at me in the mirror. "Fix your hair, dear. It looks messy." During the reception, she gave a toast. She took the microphone from the DJ before he could announce us. "My son," she began, her voice echoing through the barn. "My brilliant, talented son. I remember when he was born. I promised I would always protect him. I promised I would never let anyone drag him down." She paused. She looked directly at me. "David deserves the best. He deserves excellence. And I know that no matter what mistakes he makes, he will always come back to the people who truly love him." She raised her glass. "To David, and to learning from our errors." The room was dead silent. People were exchanging horrified looks. David stood up. He looked pale. "Thanks, Mom," he mumbled, and quickly signaled the DJ to play music. That night in our hotel room, I cried. "She called our marriage a mistake, David, in front of everyone." "She didn't mean it like that," David said, rubbing my back. "She's just emotional. She feels like she's losing me." "She is a monster, David." "Don't call her that," he snapped. It was the first time he'd ever raised his voice at me. "She's my mother, Sarah. She sacrificed everything for me. You don't know what she's been through." I stopped talking. But that night, lying next to my new husband, I felt a cold knot of fear in my stomach. I wasn't just marrying a man. I was marrying a dynamic, a sickness. November 14th, a Tuesday. It was raining in Seattle. The kind of rain that feels like the sky is falling, sheets of gray water hammering the roof. David was driving home from a site inspection in Tacoma. He called me at 5:30 p.m. "Hey, babe," he said. "Traffic is a nightmare. I might be late for dinner." "It's okay," I said. "I'm making chili. Drive safe." "I love you, Sarah. Tell the kids I love them. We love you too. That was the last time I heard his voice. At 8 p.m., he wasn't home. At 9 p.m., his phone went straight to voicemail. At 10 p.m., I was pacing the living room, feeling like I couldn't breathe. At 11:43 p.m., I saw the lights, blue and red, flashing through the front window, reflecting off the wet pavement. I opened the door before they even knocked. 2 state troopers, their hats in their hands, their faces wet with rain. They looked young, too young to be carrying this much darkness. "Mrs. Stevenson?" he asked. "No," I whispered. I stepped back. "No, don't say it. Please don't say it." "There was an accident," he said. "A semi-truck hydroplaned. Your husband, he didn't suffer, ma'am." The world ended right there. I remember falling. I remember the cold air rushing into the hallway. I remember screaming, but it sounded like it was coming from someone else, someone far away. And then I remember the phone ringing. It was Martha. I answered it, sobbing. "Martha, David, he's—" "I know," she said. Her voice wasn't sad. It wasn't shocked. It was cold. "Steel. I warned him," she said. "I told him driving in this weather was dangerous, but he was rushing home to you." "Martha, please." "He's dead because of you, Sarah. You distracted him. You made him weak. You killed my son." Then the line went dead. I didn't know it then, lying on the floor of my hallway while the police officers looked on with pity. But the accident wasn't the end of the tragedy. It was just the opening bell. David was gone, and the only thing standing between Martha Stevenson and my children was me. The funeral was a blur of black umbrellas and whispered condolences. Martha paid for everything. She insisted. "It's the least I can do," she told the funeral director, loud enough for everyone to hear, "since Sarah has no real income." I made $80,000 a year, but to Martha, if you didn't wear a suit to a high-rise office, you were unemployed. The service was at the biggest cathedral in the city. Martha sat in the front row. I sat next to her, holding Leo and Mia. They were 5 years old. They looked so small in their black clothes. Leo was clutching a toy truck David had given him. Mia was sucking her thumb, something she hadn't done in years. When it was time for the eulogy, Martha stood up. She walked to the podium like she was accepting an award. She spoke for 20 minutes. She talked about David's childhood, his awards, his career, his brilliance. She never mentioned me, not once. She never mentioned that he was a husband or a father. "David was a Stevenson," she concluded, her voice breaking perfectly on cue. "He was pure light, and even though that light was dimmed by recent years, by burdens he shouldn't have had to carry, I know he is finally at peace." She looked directly at me when she said burdens. After the service, at the graveside, it started to rain again. People were drifting away, heading to the reception. I knelt down to fix Mia's coat. Martha walked over. She stood over us, casting a long shadow. She didn't look at me. She knelt down in the mud in her $4,000 dress and grabbed Leo's shoulders. "Don't you worry, my little prince," she whispered. Her voice was fervent, almost manic. "Daddy is gone, but Grandma's here now, and Grandma is going to fix everything. I'm going to take care of you. I won't let anyone ruin your life the way they ruined your father's." She kissed his forehead. Then she stood up, brushed the dirt off her knees, and looked at me. Her eyes were dry. "Enjoy the house while you can, Sarah," she said softly. "What?" I asked, blinking through my own tears. "The house. David bought it before he married you. It's marital property, sure, but lawyers can do magic." She turned and walked away, her heels clicking on the wet pavement. I stood there, shivering, holding my children's hands. My husband had been in the ground for less than an hour, and his mother was already threatening to evict me. 2 weeks later, the doorbell rang. I was making oatmeal. It was a Tuesday morning. I was trying to keep a routine, trying to be the rock the twins needed, even though I felt like sand crumbling into the ocean. I opened the door. A courier stood there, a young guy with a nose ring and a bored expression. "Sarah Miller?" "Yes." "Service for you." He handed me a thick manila envelope and walked away. I closed the door. My hands were shaking. I sat at the kitchen table and opened it. Petition for full custody. Plaintiff, Martha Stevenson. Defendant, Sarah Miller. I couldn't breathe. The room started to spin. I read the words, but they didn't make sense. Unfit mother. History of substance abuse. Financial instability. Psychological distress endangering minors. Substance abuse? I drank a glass of wine maybe on Friday nights. Financial instability? David had life insurance. I had savings. Unfit? I lived for my children. I turned the page, and then I saw it. An affidavit, a sworn statement. Name, Mrs. Gladys Gable. Relation, neighbor. Mrs. Gable, the sweet 70-year-old lady next door, the one I baked cookies for, the one who watched the kids when I had to run to the store. I have witnessed disturbing behavior from Mrs. Miller over the past 6 months. I frequently hear screaming coming from the residents. I have seen Mrs. Miller visibly intoxicated in the afternoons. The children often appear unkempt and neglected. On October 4th, I saw Mrs. Miller stumbling on the front porch. I gasped. October 4th? That was the day I tripped over a toy truck and sprained my ankle. I wasn't stumbling drunk. I was limping in pain. Mrs. Gable had lied. Why? Money, I whispered to the empty room. Martha bought her. I flipped to the next page. Photos. A picture of me sitting on the porch steps, head in my hands. Caption, defendant displaying despondent behavior while children unsupervised. The kids were at school. I was crying because I missed David. A picture of my recycling bin with 3 wine bottles in it. Caption, evidence of excessive alcohol consumption. Those bottles were from a dinner party we hosted 3 months ago. We just hadn't taken the bin out. It was a collage of lies, a carefully curated, meticulously edited reality where I was a monster and Martha was the savior. I drove to downtown Seattle an hour later. I left the kids with my sister, terrified to let them out of my sight for even a minute. I went to see Gerald Henderson. He had been David's lawyer for years. He drafted our wills. He was an old friend of David's father. His office smelt like old books, pipe tobacco, and dust. Henderson read the petition. He read it slowly. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. He looked old, tired. "Sarah," he said quietly, "this isn't just a custody petition." "What is it?" "It's a declaration of war, a scorched earth strategy." "But it's all lies, Mr. Henderson. Mrs. Gable is lying. The photos are taken out of context. The judge will see that, right?" Henderson sighed. He looked at me with pity. "Sarah, family court isn't about truth. It's about evidence. And Martha, she has evidence. She has witnesses. She has a narrative. So I tell my side. You can, but look at who she is. Martha Stevenson sits on the board of 3 hospitals. She donates millions to political campaigns. She plays golf with the judges. She has power. And you? I'm a freelancer, a nobody. You're a grieving widow without a support system." He corrected. "And she's filed for an emergency temporary custody hearing." My heart stopped. What does that mean? It means she wants the kids now, pending the full trial. She's arguing that you are in immediate danger of harming them. When is the hearing? Friday. Friday? That's in 3 days. Yes. Henderson leaned forward. "Sarah, listen to me. This is going to be ugly. Martha has unlimited resources. She can drag this out for years. She can bury you in legal fees until you're bankrupt. She will hire private investigators to follow you. She will dig up every mistake you've ever made since kindergarten." She wants to break me. Yes, she wants you to surrender voluntarily. She wants you to sign the papers, give her the kids, and walk away. I thought about Leo and Mia. I thought about Leo's laugh. I thought about the way Mia curled her hair around her finger when she was tired. I thought about David and how much he loved them. I looked at Henderson. She can have my money. My voice was shaking, but it was getting stronger. She can have the house. She can have everything David left me. I stood up. But she will have to kill me before she takes my children. Henderson looked at me. A small smile appeared on his face. Good, he said. Then we fight. I left his office feeling a surge of adrenaline. I felt like a warrior. I didn't know that Martha was already 3 steps ahead of me. I didn't know that while I was sitting in that office, a locksmith paid by Martha was already at my house, making a copy of my new key. I didn't know that the war had already started and I was already losing. They call it gaslighting. It's a trendy word now. People use it when their partner lies about texting an ex or when a boss changes a deadline. But real gaslighting isn't just lying. It is a systematic dismantling of your reality. It is taking the ground beneath your feet and turning it into quicksand until you are so busy trying not to sink that you forget how to stand. Martha didn't just want to win in court. She wanted to break my mind. She needed the judge to see a crazy woman, so she decided to make one. Interior. Kitchen. Night. It started 3 weeks after the funeral. I walked into the kitchen at 6 a.m. to make coffee. My eyes felt like they were filled with sand. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours in a month. I reached for the coffee tin on the counter. It wasn't there. I frowned, looking around. "I just bought it," I whispered. "I bought it yesterday." I checked the pantry, the fridge, the trash. Nothing. "Okay," I said. my voice sounding too loud in the empty house. "Okay, Sarah, you're tired. You forgot to buy it. You're grieving. It's normal." I drove the kids to school. When I came back, the coffee tin was sitting in the middle of the kitchen table, right in the center. I froze in the doorway, staring at it. It was like seeing a ghost. I walked over and touched it. It was cold. Did I put it there? Did I move it this morning and forget? "I'm losing it," I whispered. 2 days later, it was the keys. I always hung my keys on the hook by the door. David built that hook. It was a habit etched into my bones. But on Thursday morning, when we were already running late for school, the hook was empty. "Mommy, we're gonna be late," Leo whined, pulling on his backpack. "I know, baby, I know. Just help me look." I tore the house apart. I dumped out my purse. I checked the sofa cushions. I was sweating, frantic, tearing up the living room like a mad woman. Finally, I opened the freezer to get an ice pack for my throbbing head. There they were. My keys. Sitting on top of a bag of frozen peas. I stared at them, the cold air hitting my face. Why would I put my keys in the freezer? "Mommy?" Mia was standing in the kitchen doorway, looking at me with big, scared eyes. "Why are you crying?" I realized I was shaking. "I'm just silly, baby," I choked out, grabbing the cold, freezing keys. "Mommy is just silly." The pranks turned dangerous a week later. I woke up at 2 a.m. Not because of a noise, because of a smell. Heavy, sweet, rotten eggs, gas. I bolted out of bed, running down the hallway. "Leo, Mia." I burst into their room. They were sleeping. The smell was stronger here. I ran downstairs, stumbling in the dark, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I ran into the kitchen. The stove. All 4 burners were turned to high. The gas was hissing, filling the room with poison. But there was no flame. I slammed them off. I threw open the back door, gulping in the cold night air, coughing. I grabbed my phone and used the flashlight to look at the knobs. They hadn't been bumped. You have to push them in and turn them. It takes force. It takes intent. I had made tea at 9 p.m. I remembered turning the stove off. I remember it. Or did I? I slid down the cabinets to the floor, pulling my knees to my chest. Am I trying to kill us?
Is Martha right? Am I unstable? Did I do this? That was the moment the doubt set in. Deep, terrified doubt. Not about Martha, about myself. Interior living room night. 2 weeks later. It was a Tuesday, 9:15 p.m. The kids were asleep. I was folding laundry on the couch, watching a mindless sitcom, trying to pretend my life was falling apart. Knock. 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 It wasn't a friendly knock. It was sharp, authoritative, the kind of knock that demands, not asks. I went to the door. I looked through the peephole. 2 people, a man and a woman, polo shirts, clipboards, badges on lanyards. My stomach dropped through the floor. I opened the door. "Sarah Miller?" the woman asked. She had a kind face, but her eyes were scanning the room behind me instantly. "Yes," I stammered, blocking the door. "I'm Investigator Torres, and this is Investigator Chin. We're with Child Protective Services." "A report?" I stammered, blocking the door. "From who?" "We can't disclose that, ma'am, but the report alleges substance abuse and immediate danger to the children due to unsafe living conditions." "That's a lie," I said, my voice rising. "My mother-in-law sent you, Martha Stevenson. She's harassing me." Investigator Torres looked at me. He didn't see a grieving widow. He saw a woman with messy hair, wearing sweatpants, shaking, blocking the door at 9 p.m. "Ma'am, we can do this voluntarily, or we can come back in 20 minutes with a police escort and a court order. If we do that, we take the children into emergency custody automatically." I stepped back. "Come in." They walked into my home, and suddenly I saw my house through their eyes. It wasn't just messy. It looked chaotic. There was a pile of laundry on the couch. Laziness. There were dishes in the sink from dinner. Neglect. There was a glass of water on the table that looked like vodka. Substance abuse. They moved through the house with clinical efficiency, flashlights beaming into corners, opening the fridge, checking expiration dates on the milk. "The house is cluttered," Torres said, writing on his clipboard. Scratch, scratch. "I have 5-year-old twins," I defended. "They play. It's a tripping hazard." They went upstairs. My heart was in my throat. "Please don't wake them. They have school tomorrow." "We need to verify their physical condition," Chin said gently. They went into Leo's room. They pulled back the covers. My son blinked, confused in the flashlight beam. "Hi, buddy," Chin said. "I'm just checking on you. Do you have any boo-boos?" Leo shook his head, terrified. He looked at me. "Mommy?" "It's okay, baby. Go back to sleep." They did the same to Mia. Then they went into my bedroom. Torres walked straight to the ensuite bathroom. He didn't look around. He walked directly to the medicine cabinet above the sink. He opened it. He moved a bottle of Tylenol aside, moved a tube of toothpaste aside, and pulled out a bright orange prescription bottle. "Mrs. Miller," he called out. I walked into the bathroom. He was holding the bottle up in a gloved hand. "Is this yours?" I looked at it. I see Tyleno Bell or OCOYDONE ACETAMONHPEN 500 325 mgs and dark text QTY30. Patient Sarah Miller. Date 11/28/28. 3 days ago. I've never seen that before in my life, I whispered. "It has your name on it," Torres said. "It's filled," Chin noted, peering over his shoulder. "She planted it," I said. I felt the panic rising in my throat, choking me. "Martha, she has a key, or she broke in. She planted it to frame me." Torres and Chen exchanged the look. The look. Paranoid, denial, typical addict behavior. "Ma'am," Torres said, "we're going to have to take this, and we're opening an active case file. You'll need to submit to a drug test within 24 hours. I'll take one right now. Test me right now." "We don't do that here. You'll receive instructions." They walked to the front door. "The children can stay tonight," Torres said. "But Mrs. Miller, if you test positive or if we find anything else, we will remove them. Do you understand?" "I understand that I am being framed." They closed the door. I locked it. Then I deadbolted it. Then I dragged a kitchen chair and wedged it under the handle. I slid down the door to the floor, burying my face in my knees. She had been in my bathroom. She had walked past my sleeping children. She had stood next to my toothbrush. She was invisible. She was everywhere. And she was winning.
The next morning, I called Henderson. "They raided my house," I said. I was sitting in my car outside the drug testing lab, watching people walk in with their heads down. "I know," Henderson said. His voice sounded heavy. "She planted pills, Mr. Henderson, oxycodone, in my name." "Did you take any?" "No. Are you listening to me? It's a setup." "Sarah, I believe you. But the judge won't. Not without proof. Right now, the narrative is that you are a grieving widow spiraling into addiction. So prove she planted them." "How? Did you see her? Do you have camera footage?" "No, my cameras disappeared." "Exactly. Listen, Sarah, the Guardian ad litem submitted her preliminary report this morning." I gripped the steering wheel. "And she's recommending temporary custody be awarded to Martha Stevenson pending the outcome of the substance abuse investigation." The world went silent. The traffic noise faded. "She's taking them?" "The hearing is in 10 days, unless we find a smoking gun." "Yes, she's taking them." I hung up. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror, dark circles under my eyes, pale skin, hair pulled back in a messy bun. I looked exactly like the junkie Martha said I was. That night, lying in bed with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan, my phone pinged. 11:42 p.m. Unknown number. I opened the text. It was an image. My blood turned to ice. It was a photo of me, sleeping, taken from directly above. I recognized the pajamas I was wearing. I recognized the way my arm was thrown over my eyes. It was taken last night. I looked up at the ceiling fan. I stood on the bed. I turned on my phone flashlight and shined it into the dark gaps of the fan housing. There, a tiny, unblinking black lens and a faint red light. She was watching me, right now. I wanted to rip it out. I wanted to smash it with a hammer. But something stopped me. If I smashed it, she'd know I knew. She'd pull back. She'd hide the evidence. I needed help. Not a lawyer. Not the police who thought I was crazy. I needed someone who played dirty. I remembered a name David had mentioned once, years ago. We were talking about his family, and he mentioned the black sheep. My cousin Mike. The family hates him. He used to be Army intelligence, then got into private security. Mom calls him the thug. He calls her the ice queen. He's the only one she's scared of. I ran to David's old iPad. I scrolled through the contacts. Mike V. Fixer. I dialed the number. My hands were shaking so hard I mistyped it twice. It rang and rang. Yeah? A voice like gravel. Is this Mike Stevenson? Who's asking at midnight? I'm Sarah Miller, David's wife. Silence on the line. Then a heavy sigh. I heard about David. Tough break. I need help, Mike. Your aunt, Martha, she's killing me. She's taking the kids. Yeah, that sounds like Martha. I think she has cameras in my house. I think she's watching me right now. Don't look at them, Mike snapped instantly. His voice shifted from tired to sharp. Where are you? In my bedroom, under the fan. Get out of the room. Go to the kitchen. Pour a glass of water. Act normal. Do not look at the ceiling. I walked to the kitchen. My legs felt like rubber. Okay, I'm in the kitchen. Listen to me, Sarah. If she's watching you, we have one shot. Does she know I called me? No. Good. Keep it that way. Meet me tomorrow, 1 p.m., Sullivan's Diner on Route 9. It's a dump. She wouldn't be caught dead there. Bring cash. Don't bring your phone. Leave it in the car. Okay. And Sarah? Yes? Get some sleep. You sound like a wreck. And if you're going to fight Martha Stevenson, you need to be sharp. Sullivan's Diner smelled of burnt bacon and stale cigarette smoke. It was the kind of place where the vinyl booths were taped together with duct tape. I walked in at 12:55 p.m. He was in the back booth, facing the door. Mike Stevenson looked nothing like David. David was soft edges, pressed shirts, and gentle smiles. Mike was jagged. He was big, shoulders stretching the seams of a black leather jacket. He had a thick beard graying at the chin and eyes that moved constantly, scanning the room, the window, the door. There was a scar running through his left eyebrow. He was eating a plate of eggs with mechanical efficiency. I slid into the booth opposite him. "You're late," he said, not looking up from his eggs. "I'm 5 minutes early. In my world, that's late." He finally looked at me. His eyes softened, just a fraction. "You look like you've been through a meat grinder." "I feel like it." "Coffee?" He signaled the waitress, without asking me. "Black. Keep it coming." He pushed a file folder aside. "Talk. Start from the funeral. Don't leave anything out, even the small stuff, especially the small stuff." I told him everything. The white dress at the wedding, the unfit mother threats, the keys moving, the gas stove, the CPS raid, the pill bottle, the photo of me sleeping. Mike listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't gasp. He ate his eggs and watched my face. When I finished, I was crying, quiet, exhausted tears. "She's going to win, Mike. She has money. She has witnesses. She has the system." Mike wiped his mouth with a paper napkin. "She has money," he agreed, "but she's sloppy." "Sloppy? She's meticulous." "No, she's arrogant. There's a difference." Mike leaned in, lowering his voice. "Meticulous people cover their tracks because they're afraid of getting caught. Arrogant people leave tracks because they don't believe anyone is smart enough to follow them. She planted the pills. Obviously. But how did she get the prescription? She needed a doctor, a pharmacist, a paper trail. That's a felony. Prescription fraud. And the cameras? Illegal surveillance, wiretapping, felony number 2. And the gas stove? Attempted reckless endangerment. Or attempted murder, depending on the DA's mood. Mike pulled a small device out of his pocket. It looked like a walkie-talkie with an antenna. This is an RF scanner. It detects radio frequencies. Tonight, I'm coming to your house. She'll see you. No, she won't. Because at 2 a.m., the power to your block is going to mysteriously go out for about 10 minutes. A transformer issue. Very tragic. I stared at him. You can do that? Mike winked. It was the first time he looked anywhere remotely like David. I have friends in low places. I'll get in. We sweep the house, we find the eyes, and then we blind her. And then what? Then we turn her own weapons against her.
Mike's laptop hummed on my kitchen table. The screen showed the grainy, hacked feed of Martha's study, but she had gone to bed. Now it was just an empty room filled with expensive furniture and malice. "We have to flip the script," he said. He was pacing my small kitchen, his boots heavy on the linoleum. "Right now, she's the predator and you're the prey. She's waiting for you to fail. But you're not failing fast enough for her timeline." Her timeline is March 18th, the day after the hearing. Exactly. She needs you destroyed before then. She needs a smoking gun to justify taking the kids immediately. She wants a public breakdown, an overdose, a neglect charge that sticks. "So we give it to her," I whispered. Mike stopped pacing. He looked at me. "It's dangerous, Sarah. You have to be a better actress than Meryl Streep. If she senses for 1 second that you're faking, she'll scrub the evidence and disappear." "I can do it. Tell me how." "She's been pushing you to hire help, right? In those emails to her lawyer, she kept saying if she would just hire a nanny, we could get someone on the inside. She wants to plant a spy. So we let her." Mike pulled up a website on his laptop. Care.com. "Post an ad. Tonight. Overwhelmed widow needs immediate help with twins. Flexible hours. Cash pay. Make it sound desperate. Make it sound like you're drowning." And then what? And then we wait. "Martha is monitoring your internet usage. I saw the keylogger on your Wi-Fi router. She'll see the ad the second you post it. She'll have her operative apply within 24 hours. How will we know which one is her spy?" Mike grinned. It was a wolfish, terrifying grin. "Because I've been tracking Martha's payroll for the last 3 hours. I know exactly who she put on retainer last week." I posted the ad at 11 p.m. By 8 a.m. the next morning, I had 12 responses. Most were generic, but one stood out. From Brenda Carlson. Subject: caring grandmother figure available immediately. "Dear Sarah, I saw your post and my heart went out to you. I have 20 years of experience with high-needs families. I specialize in helping mothers who are going through difficult transitions. I can start today." I showed the email to Mike, who was sitting in his van down the street, communicating via burner phone. "That's her," Mike said in my ear. "Brenda Carlson. Real name, Brenda Kowalski. She's a corporate spy. Used to work for Black Cube. Martha used her 5 years ago to dig up dirt on a zoning commissioner." "She sounds nice." "She's a shark in a cardigan. Call her, hire her, invite her over for an interview at noon."
At 12 p.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. I opened it. Brenda was perfect. She was in her late 50s, with soft gray hair pulled back in a sensible bun. She wore a floral blouse and comfortable shoes. She smelled like vanilla and baby powder. "Mrs. Miller?" she asked, her voice warm and soothing. "I'm Brenda." "Please come in." I stepped aside. I'm a bit of a mess right now." I wasn't acting. I hadn't showered. I wore stained sweatpants. I looked exactly like the target she wanted. We sat at the kitchen table. "You have a lovely home," Brenda said, her eyes darting to the pile of dishes in the sink. I knew she was mentally cataloging the mess. "I understand things have been hard since your husband passed." "It's been impossible," I said, putting my head in my hands. "I just can't keep up. The kids, they're so loud, and I'm so tired." "Of course you are, dear. That's why I'm here, to take the burden off." She reached across the table and patted my hand. Her skin was dry and cool. "I can handle the cleaning, the cooking, the children. You need to rest. Have you been sleeping?" She was fishing, looking for the drug angle. "Not really. I take things to help, but they don't always work." Brenda's eyes lit up, a microscopic flash of predation. "Well, we can manage that. I can make sure you take your medicine on time. I can make sure the children are quiet so you can rest." "You're hired," I said. "Wonderful. Shall we discuss payment?" Actually, a deep voice boomed from the hallway. "We should discuss your parole violation first." Brenda froze. Mike walked into the kitchen. He wasn't hiding anymore. He filled the doorway holding a thick manila folder. Brenda stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Who are you?" she stammered. "Sit down, Brenda," Mike said calmly. He tossed the folder on the table. It slid across and hit her hand. She looked down. State of Illinois versus Brenda Kowalski. Charge, wire fraud, identity theft, status, parole. Her face went from kind grandmother to cornered rat in 1 second. "I don't know what this is," she stammered. "My name is Carlson." "Your name is Kowalski. You did 3 years in Joliet for identity theft. You're currently on parole in Washington State, and condition number 4 of your parole is that you cannot engage in any surveillance or security work." Brenda was shaking now. "I'm just a nanny." "We have the wire transfer. Martha Stevenson wired you $5,000 last Tuesday, retainer, for information services." "That's a felony, Brenda. That's a violation. That's you going to prison for 10 years. Brenda looked at me, then at Mike. She slumped back into her chair. The grandmother act evaporated. Her posture changed. She looked harder, meaner. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice flat. "We want you to work," Mike said. "You're going to be the best nanny Sarah ever had." "I don't understand." "You're going to report to Martha every day," I said, finding my voice. "You're going to tell her exactly what she wants to hear. You're going to tell her I'm falling apart, that I'm taking pills, that I'm neglecting the kids. You want me to lie to her?" "No," Mike corrected. "We want you to participate in a federal sting operation. If you do this, if you help us catch Martha, I hand this file to the FBI agent running this case, and he loses it. You walk away free. And if I don't, I call your parole officer right now. He's on speed dial." Brenda looked at the folder. She looked at the phone in Mike's hand. She took a deep breath. "Martha wants daily reports," Brenda said. "She gave me a burner phone. She wants photos of the mess, audio of you screaming. We can arrange that. She wants to know when you're most vulnerable. She asked me specifically to find out when you pass out from the drugs. Tell her 2 p.m. Tell her that every day at 2 p.m. I take my pills and I'm out cold for 3 hours." Brenda nodded slowly. "She's going to come, if she thinks you're out. She's going to come and take them. We're counting on it," Mike said. For the next 5 days, my house became a theater, and I was the star of the tragedy. I knew where the cameras were now. I knew the teddy bear in Mia's room was listening. I knew the smoke detector in the living room was watching. So, I gave them a show. Day 1, I intentionally didn't shower. I rubbed dark eyeshadow under my eyes to look bruised and exhausted. I wore the same stained t-shirt for 48 hours. I sat on the couch directly in front of the smoke detector camera. I poured water into a vodka bottle and drank from it, straight from the neck, sobbing loudly. "I can't do this. I just wanted to stop. Why did you leave me, David?" In the surveillance van down the street, Mike was monitoring Martha's reaction. "She's buying it," Mike texted me. "She's saving the clips. She just emailed her lawyer. Evidence of alcoholism secured." Day 2. I went into the kitchen. I crushed up vitamin C tablets into a fine white powder on the counter. I used a credit card to line them up. Then I leaned down and snorted them. It burned like hell. My eyes watered. I staggered back, laughing wildly. Brenda was standing in the corner, taking photos with her burner phone. "That's good," she whispered. "Turn your head more to the left so the light hits the powder." She sent the photos to Martha. 10 minutes later,
Brenda's phone pinged. "Excellent work. Is she sedated now?" "Out cold. Kids are watching TV alone." "Good. Keep documenting." Day 3. I went into the kids' room. I knew the teddy bear was on the shelf. I sat on the floor with Leo and Mia. I had explained to them that we were playing a secret game. "Okay, guys," I whispered. "Remember the game. Mommy is going to yell, but she's not mad. It's just acting, like in a movie. Can you scream for me?" "Like a dinosaur?" Leo asked. "No, like you're scared. But remember, it's pretend." I took a deep breath. Then I started screaming. "Get away from me! I can't stand you! You're so loud! Shut up! Shut up!" I banged pots and pans together to make it sound violent. Leo and Mia screamed on cue. They were actually having fun, giggling between the screams, but the audio bug wouldn't pick up the smiles. It would just pick up the chaos. I stopped, hugged them both. "Good job, guys. Who wants ice cream?" Mike texted me 10 minutes later. "Martha just forwarded the audio file to the Guardian ad litem. Subject line, psychological abuse in progress." On Wednesday, 2 days before the hearing, Brenda made the call. We sat in the kitchen. Mike had his recording equipment set up. Brenda dialed Martha on speakerphone. "Martha, it's Brenda." "Report." "It's getting worse. She's spiraling fast. Today she took, I don't know what it was, 4 blue pills. She passed out on the couch at 1:45 p.m. I couldn't wake her up for 3 hours." "Is she violent?" "She was screaming at the children this morning, throwing things. The little girl, Mia, she's terrified. She asked me if she could come and live with you." This was a lie, but it was the lie Martha wanted to hear most. "She asked for me?" Martha's voice softened, then hardened again. "Of course she did. They're in hell." "I'm worried about their safety, Martha," Brenda said, reading from the script Mike had written.
I don't think they should stay here another night. Sarah is talking about leaving. Leaving? To where? She was looking at maps. Canada. She said if the judge rules against her on Friday, she's taking them and disappearing. That bitch. She's a flight risk. I think you need to act, Brenda said. If you wait until Friday, they might be gone. You're right. I can't trust the court. Patterson is too soft. I have to protect them myself. What do you want me to do? Tomorrow, Thursday, you said she passes out at 2 p.m.? Like clockwork. Make sure she takes the pills. Make sure she's out. I'll come at 2:30. Have their bags packed, passports, clothes, favorite toys. Be ready. You're coming to the house? I'm coming to save my grandchildren. I'm taking them to the airport. By the time Sarah wakes up, we'll be in the air. Okay, I'll be ready. Martha hung up. The kitchen was silent. Mike saved the recording. He looked at me. His face was grim. She took the bait. She's coming tomorrow, I whispered. My stomach felt like it was full of lead. We have attempted kidnapping, Mike said. Conspiracy, but it's just talk until she actually does it. We need her to get in the car. We need her to put the kids in the car. We need the act. What if she has a gun? What if she brings security? She won't. She wants this to be a rescue. She wants to be the hero. She'll come alone, maybe with a driver, but she'll come alone to the door. Mike stood up. He checked his sidearm, a Glock tucked into a holster at his waist. Tomorrow is game day, Sarah. Get the kids ready. Pack their bags for real. Make it look like you were planning to run. It sells the narrative. Mike. Yeah? Promise me they won't get hurt. He looked me in the eye. I will take a bullet before I let her take those kids. I promise. Thursday felt like holding your breath underwater. The morning routine was surreal. I made pancakes. I braided Mia's hair. I tied Leo's shoes. I hugged them a little too long, a little too tight. Why are you squeezing me, Mommy? Leo asked, squirming. Just love you, I said, fighting back tears. Mommy loves you so much. I sent them to school. Mike tailed the bus. He stayed in the school parking lot all morning just in case Martha decided to strike early. I spent the morning packing. I filled suitcases with their clothes. I put their passports on the counter. I made it look exactly like a woman preparing to flee the country. At 1:30 p.m., Brenda picked them up and brought them home. She's moving, Mike's voice crackled over the secure earpiece I was wearing. Target is mobile. Black Mercedes SUV, leaving her estate. ETA 20 minutes. Copy, I whispered. Places, everyone. Sarah, take the position. I went to the living room couch. I swallowed 2 vitamin C pills while Brenda watched and signaled Martha. I lay down. I let my body go limp. I slowed my breathing. Brenda took the kids into the kitchen for a snack. The house went quiet. 1:50. 1:55. I heard the tires on the gravel. My heart hammered against the couch cushion. Thump, thump, thump. Target in the driveway, Mike's voice said in my ear. She's alone, no driver. She's getting out. I heard the car door slam. I heard heels clicking on the walkway, fast, aggressive. The front door opened. Brenda had left it unlocked. The smell hit me first. Chanel No. 5. Overpowering, cloying. Martha walked into the living room. I kept my eyes closed, but I could feel her standing over me. I could feel her hatred radiating like heat. She didn't check if I was breathing. She didn't check my pulse. She kicked my foot hard. Pathetic, she hissed. She stepped over my legs, literally. She walked into the kitchen. Grandma, Leo shouted. Shh, Martha's voice was sharp. Quiet, Leo. Mommy is sick. We have to be very quiet. Are we going on the adventure? Mia asked. Yes, darling, the big adventure. To a place where there are mountains and chocolate and no one yells at you. Is Mommy coming? No. Mommy can't come. She needs to sleep for a long, long time. I heard the zip of suitcases. Brenda, grab the girl, Martha ordered. I'll take the boy. Yes, Mrs. Stevenson. I heard them walking back through the living room. I heard the shuffle of feet, the roll of suitcase wheels. Bye, Mommy, Mia whispered as she passed the couch. It took every ounce of willpower I possessed not to leap up and tear Martha's throat out. But I had to wait. Mike said I had to wait until they were outside, until the intent was undeniable. The front door opened. The cold air rushed in. The door closed. Target exiting the structure, Mike's voice said in my ear. She has the subjects. She is loading the vehicle. I opened my eyes. I scrambled to the window, staying low. Martha was buckling Leo into the back seat of the Mercedes. Brenda was buckling Mia in. Martha ran around to the driver's seat. She looked manic, triumphant. She got in. The engine roared to life. Wait for it, Mike said. Wait for it. Martha put the car in reverse. The reverse lights flared white. Now, Mike yelled. Go, go, go! It happened all at once. A landscaping truck that had been parked down the street roared forward, screeching across the bottom of my driveway, blocking the exit. A delivery van, Mike's surveillance van, peeled out from the opposite curb and slammed into place right in front of her bumper, boxing her in. Martha slammed on the brakes. She honked her horn. Blare. She rolled down her window screaming, "Move! Get out of the way!" And then the sirens. Not one, 4. Police cruisers swarmed the street from both ends. Blue and red lights reflected off the wet pavement, blindingly bright. I burst out the front door. "Get away from them!" I screamed, running down the steps barefoot. Martha saw me. Her face went slack with shock, then rage. She locked the car doors. Click. She was shouting into her phone, probably her lawyer. Mike jumped out of the van. He wasn't wearing his fixer clothes. He was wearing a tactical vest. He approached the driver's side window. He held up a badge. "Martha Stevenson, step out of the vehicle." She shook her head. She revved the engine, looking for a gap to drive through the lawn. "Don't do it," Mike yelled, drawing his weapon, low, ready. "Turn off the car." An officer tapped on the glass with a baton. Thwack, thwack. "Ma'am, unlock the vehicle now." Martha looked at the police. She looked at the blocked driveway. She looked at me, standing 10 feet away, chest heaving. She realized it was over. She unlocked the doors. The officers ripped the door open. They didn't ask her nicely. They grabbed her by her Chanel jacket and pulled her out. She was kicking, screaming, a feral animal. "I'm their grandmother. I have rights. Get your hands off me." "You're under arrest," the officer shouted over her screams. "Attempted kidnapping, child endangerment." "She's a drug addict," Martha shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at me. "She's killing them. I'm saving them." I ignored her. I ripped open the back door. Leo and Mia were crying, huddled together. "Mommy!" I pulled them out. I fell to my knees on the asphalt, gathering them into my arms. I buried my face in their necks, smelling their shampoo, their fear, their life. "I've got you," I sobbed. "I've got you. Mommy's here. You're safe. You're never leaving me again." Mike walked over to where the officers were handcuffing Martha against the hood of her car. He held up a tablet. "Smile, Martha." He pressed play. Martha's own voice blasted from the tablet speakers, loud enough for the police to hear. "She's a flight risk. I'm coming to save my grandchildren. By the time Sarah wakes up, we'll be in the air." Martha froze. She stopped struggling. She looked at Mike, then she looked at Brenda, who was standing quietly by the garage, unhandcuffed. She realized. "You," Martha whispered, her face drained of color. "You traitorous bitch." "Take her away," Mike said to the officers. They shoved her into a back of a cruiser. As the car pulled away, Martha pressed her face against the glass. She was screaming something. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read her lips. "This isn't over." I stood up, holding a child in each arm. I looked at the retreating police car. "Yes, it is," I said. We didn't go home. We went straight to Henderson's office. It was 8 p.m. "She posted bail," Henderson said, hanging up the phone. $1 million, cash. She walked out 20 minutes ago." "How is that possible?" I demanded. "She tried to kidnap them." "She has no prior record, and she has the best lawyers in the state. They argued it was a misunderstanding. A grandmother taking her grandkids on a trip. They spun it. We have the recording." "We do. But tomorrow is the custody hearing. Her lawyers are going to try to get the recording thrown out. They'll claim entrapment. They'll claim it was an illegal wiretap." "Was it?" "Technically, yes," Mike said from the corner. "But in a custody hearing, the rules of evidence are flexible, especially when the safety of children is at risk." "Judge Patterson is strict," Henderson warned. "If she thinks we entrapped Martha, she might throw the whole thing out. We need to be perfect tomorrow." "What do we do?" "We let Martha hang herself," Henderson said. "She's going to come into that courtroom thinking she bought her way out of this. She thinks the recording is inadmissible. She thinks Brenda is still on her side." "Is she?" "Brenda is in protective custody," Mike said. "She's terrified. She'll testify." "Sarah," Henderson looked me in the eye, "tomorrow you cannot be emotional. You cannot be the angry victim. You have to be the rock. Let Martha be the storm. We just have to survive the wind." Friday, 3:55 p.m. The hallway outside courtroom 4B was crowded. Martha had brought an entourage, her friends from the country club, the women from her charity board. They stood in a phalanx around her like a Praetorian guard in pearls. Martha looked recovered. She had been to a salon since getting out of jail. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup covered the stress lines. She was wearing a navy blue suit that screamed respectable matriarch. When she saw me, she broke away from her group. She walked straight up to me. Mike stepped in front of me, blocking her path. "Back off, Martha," Mike growled. "I just want a word with my daughter-in-law," Martha said softly. She looked around Mike's shoulder. "You think you're clever, Sarah, hiring my nephew, entrapping me, but you forgot one thing." "What's that?" I asked, my voice steady. "I own this town. I own this courthouse. Judge Patterson's husband sits on the board of my foundation. Do you really think a little recording is going to stop me?" She smiled. "Enjoy your children tonight, Sarah, because tomorrow they'll be on a plane to Zurich, and this time I won't stop for stop signs." She turned and walked into the courtroom. I looked at Mike. "Did you get that?" Mike tapped the pen in his breast pocket. "Crystal clear." We walked through the double doors, into the arena. The courtroom air was recycled and stale, smelling of floor wax and nervous sweat. The fluorescent lights hummed with a low-frequency buzz that seemed to drill right into my molars. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Henderson. My hands were folded in my lap, gripping each other so tight my nail fingers were cutting into my palms. All rise, the bailiff barked. Judge Patterson swept in. She looked exactly as Martha had described her. Formidable, stern face, wire-rimmed glasses, black robes that swallowed the light. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at Martha. She sat down, opened a file, and frowned. We are here for the final determination in the matter of Stevenson versus Miller, Judge Patterson said. Her voice was dry like rustling paper. I have reviewed the Guardian ad litem's report. I have reviewed the motion for emergency custody filed by the plaintiff, and I have reviewed the police report filed yesterday regarding the incident at the defendant's home. Martha's lawyer, Vincent Cross, stood up immediately. He smoothed his silk tie. He looked like a man who was used to buying his way out of hell. Your Honor, Cross began, his voice smooth and projecting to the back of the room. Before we address the unfortunate misunderstanding that occurred yesterday, I must move to dismiss any evidence collected via illegal wiretapping or entrapment. My client, a grieving grandmother, was lured into a trap by a paid operative and a disgruntled family member. He pointed a finger at Mike, who was sitting in the back row, arms crossed, looking like a gargoyle. This entire kidnapping, Cross made air quotes, was orchestrated by Sarah Miller to distract this court from the real issue, her substance abuse and mental instability. Martha nodded solemnly next to him. She dabbed her dry eyes with a tissue. My client, Cross lowered his voice to a sorrowful register, went to that house because she was told by an employee Sarah Miller hired that the children were in danger, that their mother was unconscious from an overdose. Mrs. Stevenson was acting under the Good Samaritan doctrine. She was rescuing them. I felt the rage rising in my throat like bile. Lies. Beautiful, expensive lies. Judge Patterson looked over her glasses at Henderson.
Mr. Henderson, your response? Henderson stood up slowly. He leaned on the table. He looked frail compared to Cross. Your Honor, Henderson said, his voice scratchy, we are not here to debate the definition of a good Samaritan. We are here to determine the best interests of Leo and Mia Stevenson, and the evidence will show that their grandmother isn't a savior. She is an architect of chaos. Objection, Cross barked. Character assassination. Overruled, the judge said. Proceed. The first hour was brutal. Cross put Dr. Holbrook on the stand. Dr. Holbrook, Cross asked, pacing in front of the witness box, based on your investigation, who is the more stable parent figure? Mrs. Stevenson, Holbrook said without hesitation. Her home is stable. Her finances are secure. Mrs. Miller appeared agitated, paranoid, and disorganized during my visits. Did you see evidence of drug use? I saw a prescription bottle for oxycodone in Mrs. Miller's bathroom. She claimed it was planted, which is a common deflection tactic for addicts. I looked at Dr. Holbrook. She wasn't evil. She was just wrong. She had been played, just like everyone else. Then it was my turn. Cross called me to the stand. I walked up the 3 wooden steps. I sat in the chair. It was still warm from Dr. Holbrook. Cross smiled at me. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a butcher looking at a cow. Mrs. Miller, he said, you love your children, don't you? More than anything. And you would do anything to keep them? Yes. Would you lie? I don't need to lie.
Would you hire your husband's estranged cousin, a man with a history of violence, to intimidate a grandmother? I hired a private investigator to protect my family. Protect them from what? Ice cream trips? Cross laughed softly. The gallery laughed with him. Mrs. Miller, isn't it true that you staged a breakdown this week, that you pretended to be on drugs? Yes, I said. It was a sting operation. A sting operation, he repeated, mocking me. So you admit you are capable of deception. You admit you are capable of acting like an addict. How do we know you haven't been acting this entire time? How do we know the paranoid Sarah isn't the real Sarah, and this, he gestured to my clean suit, isn't the costume? Because I have proof, I said, my voice shaking but loud. You're not the one manipulating reality, I said, my voice shaking but loud. I am the one surviving it. No further questions, Cross sneered. I walked back to my seat. I felt like I had been skinned alive. Call your next witness, Judge Patterson said. Henderson stood up. He didn't call Mike. He didn't call Brenda. He called Martha Stevenson to the stand. A ripple went through the courtroom. Martha stood up gracefully. She smoothed her skirt. She walked to the stand with her head held high, like she was walking to a throne. She was sworn in. Henderson approached her. He looked like a rumpled old owl staring down a cobra. Mrs. Stevenson, Henderson began, you love your grandchildren. With all my heart, Martha said, her voice trembling with emotion. They are all I have left of my David. And yesterday you attempted to take them to Switzerland. I attempted to take them to safety, she corrected. I had a home in Zurich. I thought if I could just get them away from the chaos, they could heal. You had one-way tickets? I didn't know how long the healing would take. And the bank transfers, liquidating your assets, moving $7 million offshore? I was diversifying my portfolio. That's just good business. She was good. She had an answer for everything. Smooth, reasonable. Henderson walked back to his table. He picked up a tablet. Mrs. Stevenson, you claim you only acted because you received reports from the nanny, Brenda, that Sarah was incapacitated? That is correct. Brenda called me in a panic. So you never planned this? You never orchestrated Sarah's downfall? Absolutely not. I prayed for Sarah to recover. I wanted her to be a good mother. Henderson paused. He looked at the judge. Your Honor, I would like to submit Exhibit D. This is a video recording recovered from a hidden camera server. The IP address is registered to Martha Stevenson's home address. Objection, Cross shouted. We haven't authenticated. It's authenticated, Henderson snapped, cutting him off, by the FBI Cyber Crimes Division this morning. The room went silent. Henderson connected the tablet to the courtroom screens. The video played. It was Martha, in her study, drinking wine, talking on the phone. The timestamp was 3 weeks ago. Video audio. Martha, on phone. I don't care, Vincent. I want it done by Friday. Pause. Martha, I don't want visitation. I want them gone. I want her gone. Did Brenda report in? Pause.
Vincent. Good. Keep pushing the drugs. If she overdoses, well, that solves everything, doesn't it? The courtroom gasped, actually gasped. Martha on the screen took a sip of wine and smiled, a smile of pure malice. Henderson paused the video on that smile. He turned to the real Martha. She wasn't smiling now. Her face had gone the color of ash. Her mouth was opening and closing like a fish. Mrs. Stevenson, Henderson said, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried to every corner of the room. Did you just say, on tape, that you hoped the mother of your grandchildren would overdose? That's taken out of context. I was frustrated. Frustrated. Henderson repeated. Let's play another clip. He tapped the screen. Video audio. Martha, on phone. The judge is soft. Patterson, her husband sits on my charity board. I'll make a donation to the hospital wing. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her. Judge Patterson stiffened. She sat up straighter. Her eyes narrowed behind her glasses. Objection! Cross screamed, standing up. This is irrelevant. It is highly relevant, Judge Patterson said. Her voice was terrifyingly calm. Sit down, Mr. Cross. She turned her gaze to Martha. Mrs. Stevenson, did you just imply that you could buy my ruling? Martha looked at the judge. She looked at the screen. She looked at the exits. I donate to many causes, she whispered. Did you plant the drugs? No. Did you install the cameras? I was worried about the children. Did you forge the medical documents to take them from school? It was a misunderstanding. Henderson walked over to the plaintiff's table. He picked up the USB drive I had given him, the recording from the hallway 10 minutes ago. One last thing, Your Honor. This was recorded today in the hallway outside this courtroom at 3:55 p.m. He plugged it in. Audio recording. Martha's voice. You think you're clever, Sarah, but you forgot one thing. I own this town. I own this courthouse. Judge Patterson's husband sits on my charity board. Enjoy your children tonight, Sarah.
Because tomorrow they'll be on a plane to Zurich. And this time, I won't stop for stop signs. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. It was the silence of a tomb. Martha Stevenson stood in the witness box. Her Chanel suit suddenly looked like a costume. Her perfect hair looked stiff. She looked small, naked. Henderson looked at her. No further questions. Judge Patterson didn't take a recess. She didn't go to her chambers to deliberate. She took off her glasses. She cleaned them slowly with a microfiber cloth. She put them back on. Then she looked at Martha. Mrs. Stevenson, the judge said, in 23 years on the bench, I have presided over murders, gang violence, and domestic abuse, but I have never seen a more calculated, malicious, and arrogant attempt to destroy a family. Martha tried to speak. Your Honor, Silence. Patterson's voice cracked like a whip. You will not speak. You have done enough speaking. The judge turned to the court reporter. Let the record show that the plaintiff, Martha Stevenson, has admitted to conspiracy, evidence tampering, and attempted kidnapping. Furthermore, she has attempted to influence this court through bribery and intimidation. She looked at me. Her eyes softened. Mrs. Miller, I owe you an apology. The system failed you. I almost failed you. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. I didn't wipe it away. I am dismissing the plaintiff's petition for custody with prejudice, Patterson ruled. I am granting full, sole legal and physical custody of Leo and Mia Stevenson to their mother, Sarah Miller. I let out a sob, a sound that had been stuck in my chest for 6 months. Furthermore, the judge continued, I am issuing a permanent restraining order. Mrs. Stevenson is to have 0 contact with the children or Miss Miller. Not a phone call, not a letter, not a gift. Martha stood up. She was shaken. You can't do this. They're my grandchildren. Sit down, the bailiff barked at stepping forward. And finally, Judge Patterson said, looking at the bailiff, I am holding Martha Stevenson in contempt of court. I am also referring this evidence packet to the district attorney for immediate prosecution on federal kidnapping and wiretapping charges. Mr. Cross, the judge looked at the shark lawyer, your client is a flight risk. She has tickets to Switzerland for tomorrow morning. Cross looked at Martha. He closed his briefcase. He whispered, I can't help you, Martha. Bailiff, Judge Patterson said, take her into custody. 2 bailiffs moved in. Martha screamed. It wasn't a word. It was a primal, animal shriek of rage. No, I am Martha Stevenson. I built this city. You work for me. All of you work for me. They grabbed her arms. She kicked out, her expensive heel connecting with the witness stand. She screamed, Sarah, you did this. You poisoned him against me, and now you're stealing them. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. I stood up. I didn't look away. You're the one who's dead, Martha, I said softly. You died the day you chose hate over your own son. They dragged her out. Her screams echoed down the hallway, bouncing off the marble floors, getting fainter and fainter, until the heavy oak doors slammed shut. And then there was silence. I looked at Henderson. He was smiling. He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped his forehead. We did it, kid, he said. I looked back at Mike. He gave me a thumbs up. I looked at the empty chair where Martha had been. It was over. Walking out of the courthouse felt like walking on the moon. Gravity felt different. The air tasted sweeter. I walked down the steps. It was raining again, that Seattle drizzle, but this time it felt like a baptism. Mike was waiting by his van. He handed me a coffee. Decaf, he said. You don't need any more adrenaline. Thank you, Mike, for everything. I can never repay you. You paid me? He shrugged. Plus, watching the Ice Queen get hauled away in cuffs, that was free. What happens to her now? I asked. Federal holding, Mike said. No bail this time. Not with the flight risk. She's going to trade that Chanel suit for an orange jumpsuit. And the house? Her money? Frozen. The Fed seized assets used in the commission of a crime. She used her accounts to fund the kidnapping. She's going to spend every dime she has left on defense lawyers who know she's guilty. I took a deep breath. It's really over. Yeah, Mike said. He looked at me. Go get your kids, Sarah. Go be a mom. The trial of the people versus Martha Stevenson was the biggest news story in Seattle for weeks. The details came out in the papers, the cameras, the bugs in the teddy bear, the forged prescription. Martha tried to plead insanity. The jury didn't buy it. They deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Kidnapping, wiretapping, fraud, conspiracy. She was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. I didn't go to the sentencing. I sent Henderson. I stayed at home and baked cookies with Leo and Mia. We moved. I couldn't stay in the house where she had watched me sleep. I sold it above asking price, and we bought a smaller place in Redmond, a cottage with a big backyard and no smart home features, no cameras, just old-fashioned deadbolts and a dog named Buster. David's life insurance finally cleared. $800,000. Martha had tried to block it, claiming she was the beneficiary, but the fraud conviction nullified her claims. I put half of it in trust for the twins. I used the rest to pay off my debts and start fresh. Life got quiet. Leo stopped having nightmares about the bad lady. Mia stopped sucking her thumb. We started laughing again. One afternoon, a letter arrived. No return address. Prison stationery. I sat on the porch swing, Buster at my feet, and opened it. Sarah, the food here is terrible. The sheets are scratchy. No one knows who I am. I have a lot of time to think. I think about David. I think about how much I loved him. I keep telling the chaplain I did it for love. He says love doesn't destroy. He says love protects. I told him he doesn't understand what it's like to be a mother. But then I think about you, about how you fought for them like a wolf. Maybe you loved him too. Maybe I was wrong about that. Don't bring them to see me. I don't want them to see me in this cage. Tell them Grandma went on a long trip. M. I read it twice. It wasn't an apology. Martha Stevenson didn't apologize, but it was an admission, a surrender. I folded the letter. I walked into the kitchen. I held it over the sink and lit the corner with a match. I watched it burn until it was just ash and smoke. Mommy! Leo ran into the kitchen holding the Lego spaceship. Look, I built a rocket. That's amazing, baby. Can we go to the park? I want to launch it. Yes, I said, washing the ash down the strand. Let's go. I grabbed my keys. I grabbed my purse. I looked at the smoke detector on the ceiling. It was just a smoke detector, plastic and wire. Nothing watching, nothing listening. We walked out the door into the sunshine. I locked the door, and for the first time in a year, I didn't check it twice. People ask me how I survived, how I stood up to a woman with millions of dollars and zero conscience. I tell them I didn't do it alone. I had Henderson, I had Mike, and I had the truth. But mostly, I tell them this. Evil is powerful. It's loud. It's rich. It wears designer clothes and sits on charity boards. But evil is also arrogant. It underestimates the quiet power of a mother protecting her children. Martha thought I was weak because I was nice. She thought I was broken because I was grieving. She forgot that the most dangerous thing in nature isn't the lion hunting for sport. It's the mother bear defending her cubs. She took everything from me, my husband, my peace, my innocence. But she didn't take my children, and she never will. My dears, take a deep breath. Unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders. That was the story of Sarah and the battle for her family. And while it ended in justice, it left scars. So what do we take from this? What wisdom do we carry forward? Lesson number 1, trust your instincts. Sarah knew something was wrong from the first dinner. She felt the coldness. She saw the red flags. But she ignored them because she wanted to be polite, because she wanted to be loved. Listen to your gut. It is your first line of defense. If someone makes you feel small, unsafe, or controlled, believe that feeling. Lesson number 2. Documentation is your armor. In a world of he said, she said, the person with the proof wins. Sarah was losing when it was just her word. She started winning when she got the recordings. If you are in a toxic situation, document everything. Dates, times, photos. It might save your life. Lesson number 3. Love does not control. Martha claimed she did everything out of love, but love doesn't wiretap a teddy bear. Love doesn't gaslight. Love doesn't try to steal children in the dead of night. That is not love. That is possession. Learn the difference and run from anyone who confuses the two. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to fight for your peace against someone who thought they owned you, leave a heart in the comments. Let Sarah know she's not alone. And if you are in the middle of your own battle right now, keep going. The truth has a way of coming out. Karma has a way of catching up. And you are stronger than you think. Subscribe to Auntie Whispers for more true stories of resilience, justice, and healing. Until next time, protect your peace.